Hi, everyone. Welcome to part 4 of this series on presenting your results using LaTeX based on the Lab 10 code. In the last session, I covered how to run the plots and copy them to LaTeX, export them to LaTeX. And I also covered a little bit about developing the plot code by adapting the lab code to a new data set that some of you may find useful. I'm going to do a more extensive session on how I go about doing that later. So I will cover more of that because it's been requested. In this session, I'm going to cover how to run tables using the stargazer package and copy them over to LaTeX and then do some very basic editing. And then I'll compile, and then for more complex editing, I'm going to cover that in a separate section. But there actually will be enough there that it will give you everything you need to at least start figuring it out on your own if you want to. So hopefully I will have that done for you tonight. All right, so for starters, I am going to share my screen and then open the programs we're using. So ready? Okay, and screen share has decided does not want to work for me. Give me just a second. I'm going to try that a different way. Okay, there we go. And now you get to see 100 of me again, or an infinite number of me. And that is temporary because I'm going to move this out of the way and open our programs. I am opening our studio and although I'm already in the lab, I'm going to go through the steps, open the project, drill down to the correct directory. It just is a good practice, even if you left it open. It's a good practice if you're starting on a new session to go ahead and start with a new clean session. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and get TexStudio open as well. And so there is TexStudio. And I have two screens. My things are opening in the screen that you don't see, and I'm dragging them over. So that's what's going on there. I will go ahead and open this. I'm in that directory. This is the lab directory from GitHub. So in a little bit, I will actually upload all this stuff to GitHub, and it will be there. And I'm opening that LaTeX file too. And it still has all of that raw code that we did in the verbatim, and it has the plots that we did last time. So now I'm going to come out here and I'm going to create a new section, and I'm going to do it the same way I did before. Again, I start with that backslash and I start typing, and all of the options come up as I get to SECT. TexStudio gives me my options, and I want to come down here and get the section that has the asterisk so it won't have section numbers. And I'm going to name this part 3 results tables. You can pick whatever kind of descriptive name you want for your section in the homework you turn in. I'm more concerned that you know how to do it than that it be any particular way. You can throw a joke in there if you want. I will not be offended. So now that that's done, I'm going to come back out here because we started with a new session. The environment is empty. All of the plots are gone. All of the libraries that we loaded are unloaded. There's no data out here. So the first thing I've got to do is rerun all of the lines that we ran before just to get the data out there. And I don't really need to rerun the plots, but it's just pretty simple to do that. So that was all of that. And now we're going to create some models. And I'm going to build 3 alternative models, and then I'm going to build tables. I'm using GLM models because my outcome variable is binary. So my outcome variable in my research recently was non-territorial revisionist demands, which is just a really fancy international relations jargon for demands made by one country to another that are not territorial in nature and that involve a threat of the use of military force. So massing troops at the border or something like that. But they're specifically non-territorial demands. And I'm not going to go into my whole theory, though if you want to read my paper, I'll be glad to send it to you. And I'm sure you don't. But anyway, that's the model I'm building. I'm using transformative ideology as my main independent variable. CINC2 is a control variable that is the military capabilities of the country as a percentage of total. It's not military capabilities, it's total national capabilities of the country as a percentage of the total capabilities for all the countries in the world. So that's an interesting thing. Cold War is just a dummy variable for whether or not it was a Cold War year, and peace years is the number of years that the country has been at peace. And so that's my first model, and it's just a logit model. And so I run it, and I've got my model 1, and I've got my little summary. I did my model and I do my summary on a second line. I know that some people like to do it this way. It's just my preference to put the summary on another line. It just makes it a little easier to edit. And to me, it makes it a little clearer. It's a choice that I think either one even works with most of the style guides. So you can choose which way you want to do it. It does make it a little easier, in my opinion, to see what you're doing with your code. Sometimes if you separate, it's really a separate command. So I like to have it on a separate line. But I understand the other thinking too. So my second model is a fixed effects model. But because of that issue that I had with the multiple duplicate years issue that you saw in, I think, the first section, I can't use the PLM package because it's not a linear model, it's a GLM model. So I'm using PGLM, or I'm using GLM to do this, and I'm doing the fixed effects by doing as factor cow code, and the cow code is the numerical code that stands for each individual country. So I'm doing that first, and I'm running that, and I got all of this nice stuff. And actually, that's going to give us something else to play with whenever we export to LaTeX. And then the last thing, I'm going to do the random model I'm using the PGLM package, which is it's not the PLM package, but it's the PGLM package, and I'm using that. It does the same thing. It's panel model for GLM. So I'm going to run that, and it's going to take just a few seconds because it's computationally intensive, and some computers probably wouldn't do this. I have 32 gigabytes of RAM, and it will barely run this model. So one of the disadvantages to R is that it cannot use virtual memory. You have to have enough actual memory, which probably means something to some of you. But there is a limitation on the way R handles memory. So I did that for a reason. I wanted you to see something that I've talked about before. First, I'm going to load the stargazer library. So now I'm going to take that random effects model and try to run it with stargazer. And I get an error, unrecognized object type. Stargazer does not work with the PGLM package. I don't think it works with the PLM package. It may work with the PLM package. So given that, if I ask you to present anything with stargazer and you get this unrecognized object type with your specific package, you have two options. One is run a different model. So like I ran my fixed effects model using the as factor cow code. I could have run it using the PGLM package, but then stargazer wouldn't have been able to deal with it. So that's why I did that. So now I'm going to make a table with just the base and fixed effects models only, because I don't actually have any effective way of creating a random model that I can export, and I don't want to add an extra half an hour to an hour to this video. And I don't expect you to do that either. If you've got a model that just won't work with stargazer, then just pick a different model. So I ran that, and I shouldn't have done that. The first thing I want to do before I do that is clear the console, because like in the previous session, I want that console clear because I want to be able to run it and and come over and select all in order to copy those stargazer results. And then I'll come back over here to the results tables and paste that into place. And I do need to make a couple of minor edits because this little extra greater than sign at the end from the console copied over, and way up here I have to get back past all those factors. This from the console copied over, and I don't want that in my results, so I need to delete that. The other thing that I need to do is I only want these things. I don't want all these as factors. So I'm going to take and I'm going to highlight all of these, everything that's got an as factor in front of it, all the way down to the line with the two ands right before constant. And I'm going to delete all that. And I actually only need one of those lines. That line with the two ands and the two slashes is basically just a blank line. So that's putting a blank line in there. So now I've got all of these, the main variables and the constant, but I don't have the as factors. Stargazer creates a table that has a nice little spot for a note. And so I can put a note down here that says country fixed. I'm going to really abbreviate because I don't want it to be too big. Let's see. I'm going to put. I'm still going to make this. Let's see. I think I can say CFE omitted for space. I think that'll still fit and still look decent. So now I'm going to go ahead and compile that just to get an idea of what this looks like. And I'm not done yet. I'm not even done for now. I'm going to make at least one more edit in this session, and then I'm going to show you even more in the next session but you can see I've got the CFE, which is country fixed effects omitted for space. And then I've got all the explanatory variables. I've got the dependent variable, and I've got, you know, the coefficients and the standard errors, and I have the significance, and I have the intercept, observations, log likelihood, and AIC, which are standard things to get for the logit. So what else do I want to do? I want to make a couple of other changes. One big change I want to make is I want to come up here to the begin table. This thing in the square brackets here is the placement of the table. And just like with those figures, I want the placement to be a capital H so that the table ends up in exactly that spot. There's an option to put a caption on the table. And as you saw, the way it is right now, it's just called table 1. I want it to have a caption that says something like transformative ideology effect on non-territorial revisionist demands. I hope that's not too long. We'll find out. I'm going to click the double green arrow. And yeah, it came out okay. So the dependent variable, I'm not going to change, but I really want it to be more descriptive. So I need to just go down in the code and find where that non-territorial is and change it. And I'm probably going to be pretty quick at this because I already have a good idea of how to do this, but it's right there, that non-territorial. And so I want that to say non-territorial revisionist demands. And now one of the other things I want to change is I want transformative ideology, instead of being this just long, all run together word, that's my actual variable name in RStudio, but I want it to actually be the sort of plain English of the variable. So I want it to say transformative ideology. And so I just change it. Okay. This CINC2 here is something that's actually it's the combined index of national capabilities, and I'm going to go ahead and compile this here because I want to show you something. So okay, that looks okay, but what if we had 3 or 4 columns of stuff? We wouldn't want something that long. Well, I told you earlier that, well, I think it's fairly obvious that you can see that these are the coefficients, and here's the line with the standard errors. If you come over here, you can see, coefficients, standard errors. So the standard errors are here, and these and signs are just the spacers, the between the columns. So I can find that first column of standard errors and find the and sign in front of it and stick national capabilities in there. And what's going to happen is it's now inserted that in that spot. So I'm able to make that 2 lines. I've got Cold War here. So Cold War, and that's a dummy variable. So I actually want to do the same kind of thing. I want to come down to the second line where the standard errors are. And I want to just note that that's a dummy variable. And then I want to go ahead and change peace years. And at that point, I am pretty much done with the presentation. You see that I took that stargazer package and I've actually changed it to where I've got non-territorial revisionist demands. I've got all my variable names nice. I've got a little something here. I can spice that up a little bit too, put some other things in. I've got a caption. The only other thing I might want to do, it's pretty typical to just leave 1 and 2, and then you can refer to it as 1 and 2. But I might want to say that this is, so the first one was the base model, And the second one was the fixed effects model. So I might want to just say that. Actually, what I'll do is I'll say that this is a logit model. And this is a fixed effects logit model. And hopefully that won't be too big. It might be, so I'm going to just compile it and take a look and see how it looks. It looks okay. So I can refer to, now if I want to refer to something, if I'm typing some stuff, I can say, I can come up here and I can write, as you can see in table 1, the logit model was consistent with the fixed effects logit model, and I actually got that backwards, but that all I probably actually, since I capitalized logit model in the table, I probably want to make that consistent and go logit model fixed effects logit model. It would probably be faster to just type that all out again, but I'm glutton for punishment here. So, I do that. And of course, I'm, that might actually be the very last thing that I say. I mean, that's, what I'm going to do is, and actually, I'm going to type this in a paragraph. And the paragraph is kind of like the sections. As I started typing it, you saw that I had some options for short titles, long titles, and the asterisk or not. If I use the asterisk, it's that same numbering thing. So I've created a paragraph here called results. You're not actually going to want to do that. If you give the paragraph a title, you're probably going to want to capitalize it, make it look nice. You can also do something like this. My results, so this would capitalize the first 2 words, show that, and I'm just going to put XYZ just for space filler. So, and this is where you would type all your stuff. And at some point in there, I'll say see table 1. Column logit model. And you've read at this point, even if you've never read them as undergraduates, at this point you're to the point that you've spent at least 2 semesters reading journal articles, and that's what you see in journal articles. I mean, not that short. Obviously, that's not the full paragraph, but that's how it's done. It references the actual table, and it references, if it's well written, it will reference a column number, or maybe they give that a model name or whatever. But you're able to go from the text and look at the table and say, oh yeah, there it is. So that's the point. And from what I've shown you, you actually have the technical skills to be able to go in and produce a decently formatted table that you can also, it will be in the right place in your document, and you'll be able to write up your results so that they look nice. And that is it for this session.